Hello, good morning. My name is Claire Harding-Keefe, and I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Parenting Journey for this morning's workshop. I'm a Senior Vice President at CAMBA. We're a multi-service agency with our roots in Brooklyn, but we're really citywide now. And my role at CAMBA as a Senior Vice President is overseeing our homeless housing and family support services. And my exposure to Parenting Journey came really in wedding those two roles that I perform at CAMBA. So we have some primary parenting programs, really try to get families as early in, in the sexual reproductive cycle as possible, so they may or may not be parenting families, they may be pregnant, and really start to talk about health and wellness and planning. And as they prepare for parenthood, we really focus on health and making sure that they're getting their care and really thinking about all of the responsibilities of parenthood as early as possible. So that's kind of one of my egos at my job, and I also oversee our families homeless programs. We've got 5 family shelters, 2 in Brooklyn, 2 in Queens, and 1 in the Bronx. And we were able, with some support from the City Council, to bring one of our evidence-based parenting programs into one of our shelters. And working in the community with our parenting program, we were encountering a lot of homeless families and having a lot of difficulty engaging them over the course of the curriculum that we were providing around the parenting support. So we really wanted to try out embedding the services in one of our family shelters and see if our outcomes improved and see if we were better able to engage the families to stay in services longer. We were successful in doing that, but what we also found when we were providing the on-site services in shelter is that our families still had a fear of bringing themselves to the attention of any kind of, child parenting program. It, can just naturally assume that there's a deficit that we need to correct, which is not the approach we were taking, but there's so much eyesight on a family in shelter. I think people, even in supportive housing, can experience that, where families want to keep to themselves. They don't want to develop relationships with their neighbors or even the staff for fear of getting an ACS case or getting even advice from other people about how to parent their children. So we really wanted to even address the cultural issues that living in shelter had on parenting and really try to provide some ambassadors, some support from the clients. And we did that through the parenting journey. We got our staff trained in the parenting journey, and that in and of itself was a phenomenal experience for them personally, even for those folks that were not parents, to reflect on how they were parented. And we also eventually got one client at least, trained as a facilitator as well. Again, with the goal of really trying to make them ambassadors to try to change the culture and say, it's okay not to know everything about parenting. It's okay to not do everything right all the time, and to support each other. So we've now, fast forward a couple of years later, we've run about 5 cycles of parenting program and have had tremendous success with the families that have gone through it. They absolutely love the program, and the transformation in they themselves and some of the way they see themselves and their ability to transfer the skills that they learned through parenting in other areas of their lives has been transformational, but also with their peers. They really have developed very positive relationships with their peers, just a week or two ago, I was fortunate enough to go to one of the graduations. And one of the parents that graduated, I was hearing from staff and clients across the board how difficult and challenging she was when she first came into shelter and when she first entered the group kind of reluctantly, and the transformation that she made to the culture of the facility and her interactions with staff and other clients, and she really has developed some nice relationships. So without further ado, I'm going to let the experts tell us more about the program. So Erica and Katie are going to take it over.
Can you hear me? No. Is the light on? Is that better? Okay, great. My name is Erica Brunner. I'm the Managing Director of Strategy at Parenting Journey. Good morning. I'm hardly an expert, so thank you. That's very generous. At Parenting Journey, I oversee our external affairs apparatus, including fundraising, our public policy agenda, as well as our research and evaluation. I joined the team there about 2 years ago. I came out of a policy and advocacy world in DC where I worked to enforce, or enforce is probably not the right word, to enact policies that uplift women and families. In 2016, I was part of an initiative to turn out voters in red states for Democratic candidates. I mobilized over 50,000 folks in Tennessee and South Dakota and Missouri, and places we don't normally think of when we think about progressive policies. And so I joined the team about 2 years ago to really start to think about how do we take a direct service organization, implement a systems change lens, and really think about the structures and policies that keep the families we partner with in place, and how do we engage them and empower them to participate in that work themselves. And so we'll kind of talk through some of the things that we've been doing over the past couple of years alongside our traditional curriculum, and Katie will talk to you more about the specific clinical basis for our programming.
So good morning, everybody. It's probably good that I have a microphone, but I will warn you I'm not very good with them. And but I've been told I have a therapy voice, so I do need them. So my name is Katie Hamilton. I am a licensed mental health clinician, and I am the program director out of our New York office here for Parenting Journey. I joined Parenting Journey about 1.5 years ago. My background is actually I started working with victim survivors of human trafficking and domestic violence, and working in shelters, serving them and doing family therapy for them. And then I moved into nonprofit mental health and went into people's homes to provide family therapy. And I don't know, does anybody do home visits? I mean, you all work within supportive housing, so I imagine you get a good sense of how families are interacting in those spaces. And it is really enlightening because you do get to intimately become aware of the challenges that they experience. But you also become closer inherently because you're in their spaces. I moved away from the nonprofit sector for a very brief period of time and worked with first-generation college students in a college counseling center, and then so I also do some adjunct work, adjunct professor, and then I came back to nonprofit work because I missed the mission. And Parenting Journey really focuses on the whole family. Even though we are called Parenting Journey, we know that families, each person in a family, either by their absence or their presence, has an impact on other people. So what we do, clinically, we're founded in family systems therapy. But we also talk a little bit about narrative therapy. Our curricula, we have 5 different curricula. We're not going to spend a ton of time talking about. This is very strange for Parenting Journey. We actually are very interactive, and we will move into kind of an interactive phase. I know everybody's going, oh God, no. But it really is it'll be gentle, I promise. But we also believe that you learn from the inside out. and so you have to use your own experiences. So it does tie with our keynote speaker this morning. We very much aligned with the philosophies that he presented this morning. So I guess, Erica, do you want to talk about who we are? And
Yes, I'll try to be a representative of who we are. We're an organization with nearly 40 years of history in Boston and New York, and so as someone who's only been at the organization for 2 years, I don't feel particularly well suited to talk about who we are, but I'm one part of that. We're a 37-year-old organization that has continually innovated to provide families with the mental health support that they need to be successful. At the core of this is the acknowledgement and the belief that parenting is hard for everyone, but it is especially hard for some. And that is not because of any sort of shortcoming or failure on their part. We truly believe that is because there are systems and structures in place like racism, like patriarchy, like colonialism, that keep them from achieving their full potential, and that ultimately harms all of us because we interact in a society with all of the folks in our community. We partner with families individually, as I mentioned, as Katie has mentioned, to provide therapeutic supports. That started off 40 years ago with our founder driving around in a van in a neighborhood of Cambridge, Massachusetts called Area 4, which is a well-known sort of transitional community. She, over many years, became brick and mortar and then provided individual one-on-one therapy, and then about 20 years ago developed the Parenting Journey curriculum, which is now evidence-based, to provide therapeutic interventions and group support to parents specifically, but not necessarily just biological parents, any caregiver, anyone who is parenting or maybe parenting in absentia. And so we do work as well with clients who may not have physical custody of their child in the moment. We also, about 10 years ago, started partnering with institutions and delivering trainings to other professionals who work with families to teach them about our methodology and about our belief system, because we really believe that systems and structures reinforce themselves at every level. And over the past couple of years, we've taken a more concerted effort to even explore how we at Parenting Journey might be inadvertently reinforcing systems of power through our work and our work with families. And then the last piece of the work that we do is advocacy. We partner with our families to build. We partner with them continuously, but about 2 years ago launched the Parents' Bill of Rights, and that is a policy agenda that was created by our families for our families and prioritizes the issues that they identified, including living wage. I mean, this will surprise you, living wages, accessible housing, affordable housing, childcare, and high-quality access to education for their children. I could run through our mission and values, but I don't think they're that interesting. But I do think our core principles are really important because they really drive how we operate and how we interact with everyone. We believe that parents know what is best for their families. They may not always know how to do that or how to achieve that, but they know. Every parent loves their child and cares for their child, and we have to come into the work believing that. We trust that all parents want what is best for their children. We acknowledge that there may be factors that get in their way, and we believe that resilient parents are a catalyst for change in their own lives, in their communities, and all across the country. And so that's how we treat our parents, that's how we treat each other, and I think it really shows when you interact with the families who've been through our programming.
All right, so a lot of times, so out of curiosity, has anybody been trained in Parenting Journey here? No, all newbies. Congratulations. All right, so this is going to be good. You've been trained? Or?
Well, I've taken it when I was a parent at start.
Fantastic. Welcome. So been through Parenting Journey. All right, so we often hear when people get trained or go through Parenting Journey that it's not only professionally beneficial, but it's also personally beneficial. And one of the things that, so there's this vicarious impact for facilitators who run it, but there's also something that happens between the relationship between the facilitator and the parents that we partner with. And so I'm going to give you the secret sauce of Parenting Journey. Now, this is highly guarded. I know McDonald's has not released their Big Mac sauce stuff, but we're going to give you this tool because it is so critical to the work that we do with families. And so Eric and I are going to demonstrate it and see if you guess what it is. Okay? So, Erica, could you please tell me about your weekend?
It was fine.
I'm glad that it was fine. This weekend for me, I actually got to spend some time outside. It was also the first weekend I hadn't traveled to see some family members, so I got to stay in my pajamas till like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, which was really nice, and it was really good for me. What are your plans, though, maybe for this coming weekend?
Well, it's Father's Day, so I guess I have to see my dad and my brother.
I think I'm making those plans as well. I have 2 dads, and then I also have my brother is recently a father too. So we'll spend some time together doing that. So what will you and your father do together?
We're thinking about walking across the Brooklyn Bridge. My dad is a bridge engineer, and he just loves teaching me about bridges.
What happened? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Yeah. Communication in, okay, so if I'm a provider, okay, listening, all right. Oh, yeah, okay, I heard it. Self-disclosure. How many of you are social workers or counselors or, have been in the social work field? Okay, what do we hear about self-disclosure? Don't do it. Don't do it. I know that Jason Reynolds, said we got HIPAA, we have all these boundaries, we have codes of ethics that we need to provide. But what we do at Parenting Journey, our secret sauce is called strategic self-disclosure. We do not ask anything of the people that we partner with that we don't answer first. So when I first approached Erica, I use our traditional model. I ask a question, I expect an answer. But I didn't, Erica didn't ask me to tell her about my weekend. But by offering that little peace offering, let me offer you a piece of myself, it creates our common humanity. It's an equalizer, which is we're looking at these power differentials in the systems that we work with families. So it's not that I'm going to tell Erica my whole life story. That's very important, because we also don't want people to feel like they need to take care of us. But it is that I'm going to share enough of myself so that it opens the door for Erica to share a little bit about herself. And that is how we start at Parenting Journey, always. And now it sounds like it's a wind tunnel.
I don't know what's happening. Can you guys still hear us? Yes. Okay. Is it rain? I mean, we're on the 4th floor. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Minor technical distraction. And so I think in addition to things like strategic self-disclosure, we're constantly thinking about how do we break down these barriers between providers and our families that we partner with and our clients, because it's really important that we all understand that we share this common background and certain things regardless of our current status. And so another activity that we like to do with our folks is something called a line sculpture, and those of you who work in this field are probably really familiar with it. But we like to ask questions that we think will prompt or dig a little bit deeper into folks' life experiences. And so we're gonna do a line sculpture here, but modified. So we'll stand up if we agree with one statement or the other. Does everyone know how line sculpture works? Traditionally, you would put yourself on a spectrum, so the front of the room would be one position and the back of the room would be an opposing position, and people would line up along the sculpture based on how strongly they align with each statement. Today we're going to kind of do it more black or white, either you believe one or the other, although usually you can stand in the middle. And then as you debrief it, certain topics might come up. And so we'll just kind of do it and you'll see what we're talking about. And so the first statement is, I'll let you hear them both before you have to decide. The first statement is, if people put their mind to it, they can achieve their goals. The second statement is that without appropriate support and resources, people cannot achieve their goals. So if you more strongly align with the first statement, which is that if people put their mind to it, they can achieve their goals, just stand up. The second one is, without appropriate support, people cannot achieve their goals. wait.
For the first one or the second?
Stand up for the first one. All right, so if you're standing, you are more closely aligned with the statement. If people put their mind to it, they can achieve their goals. Good? Okay. Stay standing. Sorry, we're going to put you on blast for a minute. Okay, awesome. All right. So somebody who's standing, do you want to volunteer why you are more closely aligned with that statement? You can just popcorn. I'm not going to call on you. Yes?
I believe even if someone doesn't get the support that they need, that they'll still be able, as long as they focus and they have a plan, that they'll still be able to achieve their goal. A lot of times, people have dreams and they're not supported, but the fact that they're not supported makes them work even harder to prove the naysayers wrong.
Excellent. And in the back?
So an assumption that everybody needs help.
Yes.
I agree with the young lady here, and I think we also have to remember it may not be in the time that other people do it, but if you stick to it and you stick to that goal, it may take you a little longer, and there are obstacles that may come, but you can achieve your goal if you keep it.
Excellent. Yep.
Also, I believe in self-determination. If you're determined to do something, no one will stop you. I agree with what everybody said. I think more simply, it's just about making a decision.
And I think
Yes.
goals change. So as you go along, their goals may change and it can be different.
Awesome. Does anyone else want to add anything that hasn't been shared?
I
Oh,
also feel that if you're driven and you have a true call and a passion for something, you're going to seek out other options. It may be no over here, but you're going to look for a different way where it's yes, and you're going to stay on the road of yes until that goal comes to pass.
awesome. Thank you. And we definitely see examples of this every day, I'm sure, with, in life and with our clients, that there are people who seem to just rise above any sort of circumstance and achieve great things. And so we know that it is possible. All right, thank you. So if you more closely align with statement 2, which is without the appropriate support and or resources, people cannot achieve their goals. Stand on up. We're going to call on you too. I'm not sure everyone chose a position. All right, awesome. So same drill. Is there anyone that would like to share why they are more closely aligned with this sentiment? Yes.
I think it's great when people can overcome and achieve great things, but we don't see all aspects of the support that they had when they were growing up. And these things are cumulative. Just the fact where you went to school, that you had one parent at home, one parent working, all those things contribute to your successes, even if there was great trauma. So sometimes when you see people and you see the success, you can't sort of dive in and see all the ways they were supported growing up. So for other people, it's much harder sometimes.
Yes.
I'm gonna piggyback on you. See, I'm not black or white, I'm somewhere in the middle. I can only use me. We don't live in a world in a vacuum. I can only use me as an example. I went back to school for my graduate degree at 37, became a social worker, got licensed, but I was determined. There were naysayers. I was determined nothing was going to stop me. However, it took a lot of people to make that happen. Whether I was determined or not, I was a mother of 2, had a full-time job. I needed help. So, yes, when you make up your mind, you make a decision, I'm going to do it, nothing is going to stop me. You still have to, have that appropriate support system, because we don't exist in a vacuum by ourselves. Whether you ask for it, you need it, I'm gonna go out here and do it on my own. You make that decision to make your mind up. You do have to have appropriate support in order for, that to happen. So I'm on both sides.
Thank you.
I believe yourself can be your appropriate support and resource. So, I know people we focus. Okay, great, let's focus, but I can support myself. I am my own resource. I am my own support system.
That's really important. And I think someone was just raising their hand. Yes.
Yes, I think that people have a standard of what support looks like,
Yes, sir.
And I guess continuing on that line, I feel that we are very soon to forget the people who support us. You know, we're human beings. You know, somebody held us when we was a little kid and whispered in our ears to give us that courage to be able to have that drive that we hold so dear. And without it, we might not be where we're at. And we talk about resources. If it wasn't for resources, I think everybody that wanted to be successful would be successful. You know, and those resources could be as simple as a pen and a piece of paper when you're going to school, or as complicated as $1 million to start a deal. And without it, no matter how much drive and determination that you have, you're not going to make it to where you want to be.
Yes, and the flowers.
So I was actually going to say something similar. I think that we hear support and automatically we go to like someone who's frail, who can't really on their own. Everyone is supported in some way. It could be someone who's a millionaire, someone who has nothing. Everyone is supported in some way, and there's people who've never known, homelessness or anything like that in their life, but through decades and centuries of generational wealth, they got support somehow to get to what they needed. Whether it was a social worker or their mom and dad who gave them their first million to start a business, they got support somehow to get there. So that's why I think that it is necessary.
Thank you. Just maybe 2 more shares if anyone still wants to share. Everyone's like, we're good. Okay. Thank you so much for participating. And so I think, this is actually a question that we ask of our parents and families, and very similar things come up for them. And I think this is that sort of constant conflict in all of us around this narrative we've been told about the American dream and resilience and just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And then the reality that we all actually need support, emotional support, financial support. We need certain things to thrive. Everybody does, and there's nothing wrong with that, and it's not weakness. And I think that really builds on what Jason was saying earlier, that you can be vulnerable and that you need that vulnerability in order to move forward and to succeed and build those relationships that will support you. All right. Is it this one? Yeah.
All right. So one of the other things that we do in our trainings, as we are working with providers to take on this curriculum and bring it back to their organizations, is we do a gallery of assumptions. Now, these are all the assumptions that we maintain as parenting journey. But again, we're going to ask you to choose which one resonates most with you. So I'm going to just go through them because obviously there are a lot more than 2. So to choose one. So 1, we believe all parents want to be good parents. 2, the best way to raise hope is to start by identifying a parent's strengths. 3, an individual affects and is affected by other family members. 4, people need to feel nurtured in order to be able to nurture others. 5, it is important to incorporate thinking as a step between feeling and actions to promote appropriate responses. 6, effective learning comes first through feelings, then through thinking. And 7, effective parenting is influenced by one's own past, by the whole family, and by the cultural, social, and economic circumstances in which families find themselves. All right, so who thinks, and again, you can only choose one. I know. So, who thinks that all parents want to be good parents? Stand up. All right. So, anybody want to, we're just going to do 1 or 2 just because there are a lot more of them. Anybody want to share why they think this? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Anything else? Yeah, agree? Yeah, so it is so I think what we often butt up against is ambivalence, right? So maybe not all parents wanted to be parents, right? But once they become parents, they don't ever say, I want to be the worst parent ever. But again, it comes down to maybe they just don't know how, or they need resources, okay, and support. All right. Do you want to add to that? No? Okay. All right, so number 2, the best way to raise hope is to start by identifying a parent's strength, or any person. It could be, yeah, a couple. It's okay, don't be shy. All right. Any shares?
People need to believe in themselves. So when they believe in themselves, they can become a better person.
Absolutely.
Also, in order to in order to shine a light and say, hey, if you're allowed to believe in yourself, it's easier to say, well, what are you good at? And then show them, that's how you start developing that, and that's how you build.
All the way in the back.
So that definitely just kind of opens up the pathway to allow them to believe in themselves and have hope for other things that they may want to do in the future and be successful at.
Absolutely. Self-efficacy is a big part of that. The belief that I can do something is a huge motivator. If I don't believe that I can do something, I'm not going to. And I think that a lot of the parents that we partner with, they have been involved in so many different systems or so many different programs where the narrative has been, you are a bad parent, or you don't know what you're doing, or you need our help. And the reality is we believe that all parents know what they need. It's just maybe they need a little extra help getting there. Okay? All right. An individual affects and is affected by other family members.
I'm going to say...
All right, you're all 3. You're going.
I'm going to say in the context of parenting, I believe this is true because whatever you do will affect your children. They have no choice. They don't have a choice. Unless they're 18 and they can say, bump this, I'm out. They are stuck and they have to live with the consequences of parenting.
And I think, too, one of the things that I had mentioned earlier is that you can be affected by somebody who isn't present as well, right? And so the absence of somebody in the family, whether it's one's own parents or whether it's one's partner or, again, somebody that was really important to you, has a profound impact. So we definitely believe that, again, we are strongly rooted in family systems, so we believe that, even if one person makes a change, you need support from the other people. And again, we define family as someone that is close to you. It doesn't have to be blood related, too. All right. This is a controversial one. People need to feel nurtured in order to know how to nurture others.
I have 5 kids, so this...
Wow.
So this, I don't know. I mean, yes, in the case of me, personally, I have to... Self-care makes me feel nurtured. So the better I care for myself, the better care I can give to those around me.
Good job. Also, and that also, that's straight out of our curriculum. Absolutely. So we firmly believe parenting journey is not about how to parent. None of our groups actually talk about that. We weave it in, but we actually look at the parent as a person first. And they were a person before they were a parent. They have needs, and parents do a really good job of addressing everybody else's needs. So we need to nurture parents so that they are better able to nurture themselves. Carolina Grimble, who's one of our lead trainers, always says it's like when you're on the airplane and the oxygen mask comes down, put it on yourself first, then assist a child. If you can't help yourself, you can't help others. But that doesn't mean if you weren't nurtured as a child that you are incapable of nurturing. We receive nurturing from different people in our community, and it only takes one person. So again, kind of going back to our keynote speaker this morning, the role of gratitude, the role of humility. It takes one person to impact another person in a positive way. All right, so I'm going to move through these a little bit more quickly. So it's important to incorporate thinking as a step between feelings and actions to promote appropriate responses. It's a complex one, wordy. You're going to just raise your hand, got it, all right. Well, what does this one mean? Sure. So it says, it is important to incorporate thinking as a step between feeling and actions to promote appropriate responses. Okay. Oh, no, you can go ahead.
I think it's giving yourself time to acknowledge and understand what you're feeling,
Mm.
and then turning it into something that you can actually do that benefits the thing that you're thinking about.
Mhm.
So even if you're angry, it's giving yourself methods to actually deal with your anger and not show your anger.
Mm-hmm. I know you had stood. Go ahead.
The amygdala response that comes, which often triggers old patterns,
Mm-hmm.
is one that takes a minute. It takes 15 minutes, really, to be able to get the neocortex to kick in so that we can have better conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not these sort of F you and horse you rode in on kind of conversations in those amygdala moments, but where people have the opportunity to reflect or take a walk, do whatever. I worked with a family where IHOP was their way of dealing with that. The parents said whenever they had a big issue, they went to IHOP, and they wouldn't talk till they got there because they wanted to be in a public place. And I said, how long did it take to get to IHOP? 15 minutes. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's about what it takes.
So yeah, we're looking to make this transition from reaction to response. So we react based on our emotions. They're a reflex for us, to any given situation. But we're looking to create a response, which is a thought-out response, not like premeditated issue, but we're really looking to draw insight. Why am I feeling this way, and what's really underlying it? Effective learning comes first through feeling and then through thinking. So this is kind of the flip side of the one right before it. Go ahead.
I just think it's really important to take time initially to validate what's happening, what's going on, where you kind of process things and think, right? Validation and just acknowledgement is probably a very vital first step.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So when we're talking about learning through feeling, when we go through parenting journey, when we facilitate it or when parents are going through it, we're really actually bringing them back to specific situations. And we're asking them to get in tune with what it is that they're feeling. And then we start to make connections to their current behavior. So really it becomes important to connect those feelings and then draw the cognitive relationships to those. And then the last one is effective parenting is influenced by one's own past, the whole family, and by cultural, social, and economic circumstances in which the family finds themselves. Who agrees with this one? Go ahead. Yeah. This is a big one. Yeah. So we do not operate in isolation. Our past definitely influence it. It is not deterministic. I think that's important, but it does provide insight into our current behavior. I think people can get confused with that in terms of that if I had a bad childhood, that I'm not going to be a good parent because I don't know how to parent, or the flip versus, if I had a really good childhood, I know how to parent, but really nobody knows until it happens, right? And then also cultural, social, and economic plays a huge role in how families thrive or survive, okay? So that becomes a really, really big point in when we're working with families. So these are we wanted to present both the line sculpture and our gallery of assumptions to you because it puts us in the mindset of how systemic oppression might be impacting our families. And I want to talk a little bit about something that maybe you know something about. So we're going to bring it back to the personal. So does anybody know what stress is? Yeah. Who said that? Because I want to know your secret. So I'm actually going to stand. All right. All right. Now I got to transition. Does this work? How about now? Yes? Yeah? Well, all right. So I'm going to just escape this for a moment. Oh, it might not. It won't show. Bummer. Okay, no worries. We're gonna do what we do in nonprofits, which is we're gonna pivot, all right, and fly by the seat of our pants. So, continue. All right. So for you personally, what stresses you out? We can. Can you yell it out? Money. Money, work. Busyness. Teenagers. Daycare. Okay. 4-year-old. Okay, so we've got teenagers, we've got children, younger children. Work, money, spouse, partner, parents, bills, traffic. Yes, my own personal health. What else? Lack of communication. What else? Co-workers can, yes. Staff. Neighbors.
Working with the city of New York.
Bureaucracy. All right. What will we say are our top 5 stressors? Work. Finances. Bills. So we'll put finances and bills together. So, okay, so work, finances, family, health. One more. Lack of time. All right. Okay. So, I need. How many volunteers? Like 6. I think so. I need 6 volunteers, and I promise, only thing you need to know is your name. Okay, so, 1, 2, 3. Strategically, 4, and then my friend who's volunteering so much. Thank you so much. Okay. We're going to circle up. Mary Poppins bag of. All right. So, Erica, you're not coming.
Oh, I'm in.
Okay. All right. So, sorry, we're going to see some backs. Okay. But, all right, Erica, you pop over there. All right. So, I'm going to say my name and pass the ball.
All right, chaos. From my audience, it probably looked like chaos. It's probably entertaining as well. Inevitably, I always get hit in the head with a ball. And sometimes, like, when we're stressed out, it feels like that, right? We actually get hit in the head. It's like, well, that blindsided me, right? There's this great, do you guys remember the song, Everybody's Free to Wear Sunscreen? No, it's like a written word song, and one of my favorite things is that, worry or don't worry, but worry is as effective as chewing bubble gum to solve an algebra equation. So, like, it doesn't help, right? But at the same time, it's a natural response. So we've listed a bunch of stressors that we experience day to day. What about the families we partner with? Do they have any stressors that might be more unique to us than to our own stressors? What are they? Poverty. What else? Oh, sorry. One at a time. I didn't get all that. Poverty.
Mental illness.
Housing.
Mental illness.
Mental health. Job security. I didn't hear it. Transportation. Yeah, in the back. Childcare. Lack of stability. Undocumented. Lack of education. Language barriers. Yep, maybe involvement in criminal justice system. Trauma, community violence, interpersonal violence. And again, this isn't to say that these things don't happen for people here in this room. Okay, but thank you, Erica, for we listed things that we experience stress. It's a human condition, right? For the families that we partner with, they may experience not only those stressors, but the addition of these. Okay? And so one of the things, when we do the line sculpture earlier, where it's like people can achieve their goals if they put their mind to it, or they need resources and support. How many of you have heard you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink? We are in a provider industry, we provide services, and it feels like we are flooding, families with services, but sometimes they're shutting down. For those of us who are just in this stressful circle, right? Some people just might, I watched a ball roll away past somebody, and then they're like, I'm not leaving, I'm not going to get it. It is also a human response to shut down when in the presence of extreme stress. So, I will not attempt to go through the, different parts of the brain, because we clearly have an expert in the room. But we have a reptilian part of our brain. And reptiles, when they experience extreme stress in their environment, they shut down. They do not reemerge until the environment makes it more hospitable, essentially, until they can survive. We are absolutely capable of that as well. So for the families that we work with, where they're experiencing, we're really far behind. We're experiencing these things, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is on this side, Katie. Physical safety is at the bottom. We're talking about food, shelter, and then those things. Without those things, we can't feel safe. And there's no way that we can self-actualize if we don't have those things. Now, studies have shown that it isn't necessarily hierarchical, that we have to move through all of these stages, but it is pretty well researched that without physiological needs being met and safety being met, it makes it really hard for people to reach their full potential. So it brings us back to our earlier line sculpture that yes, we can achieve if we put our mind to it, but it makes it really, really hard when the physiological and safety needs are not met.
Thank you to everyone who participated in the activity. Again, It's like fun, but also embarrassing when you're like up in front of people and can't catch a child-sized ball. So, thank you. So I'm just going to talk quickly about systemic change and systems change, which has kind of become a bit of a buzzword. But when we think about systemic change, we're talking about like how do we change the reality in which we all live so that it feels different for everyone. And so when we think about systems change, there's really like two buckets. There's transformative change, which is like changing hearts and minds. And so that's a lot of like DEI workshops where like you confront your own racism and, you know, for myself as a white woman, my own white supremacy as a white person in a white dominant society, right? And you go to those workshops and you're like, my heart and mind is changed. That's hard work, and we do that through our curriculum with, sorry, this is like getting some feedback, with families, through changing their own sort of hearts and minds about themselves, about why they're in the position they're in. It's really hard when all day, every day, people are telling you you're bad, not just like directly, but through like society, right? And so if you're, you know, a single mom of color, society is telling you a lot of things inadvertently, and then directly your child's teacher is telling you your kid's not thriving in school. You might be hearing from a social worker that you're doing a bad job. And so those messages really pile up and make it really hard to participate in any sort of service or program. The second bucket of change is structural change, and that's like policies, resources, power, and how do we change those things? Both of these things need to be addressed in order to really change a system. And so we are implementing a parenting journey, what's called the social ecological model, which is a public health approach to thinking about how people exist in their family, in their neighborhood, in their community, in their city, right? And as you can imagine, like concentric circles just kind of getting broader and broader, all the way up to like the United States of America, the world. And so in each of those circles, there are different power dynamics, and there's different things that are happening that reinforce dysfunctional and toxic narratives about who people are and who people should be. And so we want to leverage our values to address organizational sustainability challenges by working with institutions and with our government to create policies that eliminate the need for our services, right? Like, why do we exist? And how, as a nonprofit sector, are we reinforcing the need for ourselves to exist because we have to stay in business? The nonprofit sector is larger than it's ever been. In Massachusetts, which is where I live, the nonprofit sector employs 1 out of every 4 people in the state of Massachusetts. People are also living in deeper poverty than they have ever lived. The gap between rich and poor is bigger than it's ever been. This is not an issue of access to more services. People don't need more services. People need more money. People need policies that support their choices and their families and their decisions. People need to be able to thrive. And so these are hard questions to answer, and these are hard things to look at as a person who got into the nonprofit sector because I want to do good work and because I care about people, to actually confront some of the things I might be doing every day that are, reinforcing the need for me to exist in the first place. And so one of the things that I'll just share a quick example with you about something we did at Parenting Journey that's really simple. So how many of you work in a building where the door is locked? Yeah. Who are you locking the door from? Your clients. Who else? I'm sorry? Abusers. That might make sense. Criminals, right? So at Parenting Journey, we used to have our doors locked. We work in the city of Boston. You can walk right off the street and into our building, and our door was locked. What kind of message do you think that sends to the families that come to seek services at our organization? Right? That they're dangerous, that we're afraid of them. We used to have all these doors all over our building. You needed key cards to get in. People might steal our laptops. We can just buy another laptop. Also, since we stopped locking the doors, nobody has stolen anything. Nobody has gotten hurt, right? We work with, a difficult population. That's a narrative that we're telling us ourselves about the families we work with, while simultaneously trying to tell them that we don't think that about them. So, that is just one simple thing that we did at Parenting Journey to confront our own contribution to a system that keeps people in poverty and keeps people from thriving. Does anyone have any other examples of things you might do in your work that you might want to stop doing or that you've stopped doing? No, it's hard. And like, honestly, it took us like 8 months, 14 different staff meetings, a consultation with the police to stop locking our doors. I mean, it was a big effort. Yes?
It's like, it's a pretty simple thing, but where I work, on one of the floors, we have a walk-in program, a single stop program, and often there are many people waiting in chairs in that part of the office. When I come downstairs to my office to get coffee or any capacity that I try to remember to always make an effort to say good morning to people.
Yep.
We'll look at those in the eye and smile or something like that. Just hoping that in that like small way, in that interaction, it makes the space feel welcoming.
Yeah. For those in the back who couldn't hear, she said that she tries to make an effort to greet people who are in the waiting room, to just look them in the eye, make them feel welcome. And I think that's a really important step. I think a lot of times, like, we're busy at work, we're running around, we got our papers, we have casework, we got clients, we got meetings, and like we might just buzz right past somebody in the hallway without even acknowledging them. And like there's a lot of folks that come to Parenting Journey who are disregarded everywhere they go, right? Nobody acknowledges them. And so how can we act a little differently and treat folks a little bit differently so we're not reinforcing those negative things that they're telling themselves and that other people are telling them too? And so that last bullet there is, we seek to disrupt systems of racism and inequity. And we're doing that through direct service, we're doing that through a parenting curriculum, we're doing it through policy work. But I think it's really important that we acknowledge the role that we play, each of us, in this system as it exists now. And that is like a moving target that we'll always be working on. And there's no right or wrong way to approach it. We already did this one. Yeah. Sorry, we got a little out of order. We got excited. And so our approach is, we engage parents and families, we partner with organizations, and we advocate for equitable policies. I'm going to let Katie, I think a lot of you are direct service workers, so I'm going to let Katie sort of really dig into the meat of our curriculum and the clinical background and how we approach folks.
Okay. So the direct service piece, really at Parenting Journey, we provide parenting support groups. They're not parenting classes, they're not didactic, they're not based in child development. They really are focusing as a therapeutic intervention for parents. But I want to stress that it is not therapy. Okay, what often happens though is for parents who are maybe a little bit more reluctant to participate in therapy, more often than not after going through Parenting Journey, they will seek out therapy. So we have 5 different curricula, and I'm just looking at the time to see, I think I can go through a little bit for each of them. We have 5 different curricula, and they are all based in family systems, they're all trauma-informed, they're strength-based. So I like to call them our hyphenated credentials, right? Trauma-informed, strength-based, and evidence-based, okay? So only our Parenting Journey 1 curriculum is evidence-based. Our other 4 curricula are really rooted in our foundational Parenting Journey 1 curricula. And really what we do is we spend a lot of time connecting, we build trust. We spend the first probably 3 sessions building trust with parents. And we talked already a little bit about strategic self-disclosure. So I'm going to show you our first activity that we do with parents. And again, parents will come to us and be like, I have no idea what this has to do with parenting. It doesn't, okay? So the first thing that we would do is we would talk about our name. So I would start because in the PJ fashion, the facilitator always goes first. So my name is Kathryn Margaret Hamilton. It means pure pearl, no good doer, okay? I hated my name growing up because I felt like as a 5-year-old, Kathryn Margaret was a really stuffy name, and it felt pretentious and a little too sophisticated for somebody playing in the sandbox. I am learning to like my name, but I don't necessarily like to use, I still associate it with getting in trouble. Okay, so if my full, like Kathryn Margaret is shouted up the stairs, I am 33 years old, and if my mother still shouts Kathryn Margaret up the stairs, I'm in trouble, okay? So it still has a negative connotation. So then we would invite parents to share a story about their name. Do they like it? Do they not like it? Who gave it to them? What does it mean? Every journey starts with a name. And how often do the families that we work with, we already have their name in front of us when we meet with them. We already think we've got a whole host of information about families, that maybe they wouldn't have readily shared with us. Maybe they don't even share with the people they're closest to due to shame or embarrassment. And by starting with self-determination, we're inviting people to share a story, one that everybody has, however much information they want to share about their name. It could be, my name is Kathryn Hamilton. Great, thank you. And that's what they want to put in it, but it puts their voice in the room. That is the most important thing. One of the other things that we always do in our groups is we do ritual questions. It's a pet peeve of mine because they're not really questions, they're more like statements. So we ask the same 4 things of parents every week. We meet once a week for 2 hours, and people are like, 2 hours? We are usually trying to usher people out of the room at the end of 2 hours, and this curriculum was developed for mandated parents and for people who have to satisfy a parenting class. It's supported by ACS here in New York. It is also an early childhood education, parenting engagement program. And again, we really don't address how to parent your child. One of the things that we would ask parents is, tell me something that you did to take care of yourself, and how did that impact your parenting? We ask that every week, and most times it's nothing for the first 3 to 4 weeks of group. And the reason being is parents don't take care of themselves. They're too busy taking care of everybody else or trying to keep the family afloat, right? So this is critical. We ask them, what did you do to take care of yourself in the last week? And part B, how did it impact your parenting? For parents who have their children in care, we would change that last part just to be sensitive that, they may not have interacted with their child in the last week. We would say, how did that impact your relationships? Okay. The second question that we would ask is tell me about a positive interaction that you had. We're trying to shift. We're trying to look at who the support systems are. The third question is, what is something that you are proud of in the last week? Something that you did that you're proud of. Looking at, again, highlighting strengths, looking at competencies. And then the last thing is, tell me something you could have handled better. Now, that also is one that people tend to steer away from until about the 4th session. It's like, I don't know, I handled this really well. And I just want to give an example. I run a group with youth that are aging out of foster care using an adapted version of this curriculum. And I was working with a young woman who is a young parent. And she said to me when I said, tell me something that you're proud of. She said, well, I saw my mother and I got into a fight with her, and, I'm really proud of that. And I think everybody would be like, what? And I was like, well, tell me why. Tell me why you're proud of that particular interaction. She goes, because normally I would have put my hands on her. And instead I just verbally got involved, verbal altercation, and I walked away. That's an improvement. We're looking at harm reduction. We're looking at steps and highlighting those steps, those positive changes in the right direction. And ritual questions are a way that we can see that every week, and we have a form of ritual questions in all of our curricula, and that's how we start, and we always do it around a meal, because the best way to communicate is through food, always, okay? So that's a very basic underlying of our curricula, but I do want to make sure that Erica has time to talk about our partnerships and advocacy, and that there's time for questions too. Okay.
I'll move pretty quickly. It's been a long morning, and also we would definitely want to get to questions if folks have them. So really quickly, we partner with agencies. We currently partner in New York with SCO, family services, and we're exploring other partnerships. But we really think about how do we interact with an organization, not just with their clients and delivering our program, but how do we support their staff? A lot of times as, overworked professionals, we are dealing with the same exact stress that our families are dealing with. And so we've developed a program called Parenting Journey Community that is for working professionals. It's like a professional development workshop that we offer to staff at organizations to talk about self-care, building trust between colleagues, how does our stress manifest in negative interactions with colleagues, et cetera. And it's really rooted in our core principles and our guiding principles. And then the other thing that we do in our partnerships, I'm totally blanking, is evaluative support. And so we have a research and evaluation team, and we like to partner with agencies to really understand how we can be a benefit to their program's bottom line. And so Parenting Journey, the curriculum in and of itself, is like not enough, right? It's a 12-week intervention, and it gets people to a level of hope and optimism and self-efficacy, and improves their insight in a way that they're ready to receive other services. And kind of going back to what Katie was talking about, like leading a horse to water, we believe, and we've shown through our evidence-based evaluation, that our program allows people to drink that water. And so it's really important addition or component, and we want to understand the true impact of that beyond just like people come to our groups. And so we're partnering with several organizations on different kinds of research and evaluation, and so that's another way that we're thinking about it. And then the last piece is our advocacy work, which we've talked about a little bit, but I think it's really exciting because it's parent-led. And so we have a parent advisory council. Two of the leaders of our parent advisory council were just voted onto our board of directors, and so they have true representation at every level of the organization. We have trained our parent advisors to run parenting journey groups, and so they're now also running groups and interacting with families, and they are leading the charge on our policy agenda. They were part of the coalition that passed minimum wage and paid family leave in Massachusetts. They are now working on a comprehensive child care bill as well in Massachusetts. And so they are, it's really incredible to see them. Renee, who's one of our parent leaders, and her picture was actually earlier in the slide deck. When she came to us about 4 years ago, she had just lost custody of her oldest child. She was on the verge of losing custody of her youngest child. She was unemployed. She was like living on a friend's couch. Parenting Journey alone did not save her. She saved herself. We truly believe that. But she is like, I now feel like I can be a leader in my own life and in my community. So she's actually like taken the power that she feels to parent her kids and transformed it outward into her community. And she's like thinking about running for office in the city of Boston, which is like just such a transformation. It's so incredible. And she's like exactly the kind of person that we need in elected office, making policies about families. So, we'd love to branch out some of our policy work here in New York, and so if anyone's interested in that, you can chat with me after, because I do think that it's a really important piece of our policy system, that the voices who are often marginalized and invisible are actually the voices that need to be front and center, so that we can build a society that works for everyone. So I think that's all we wanted to share with you all. Do you folks have questions? We're happy to answer anything. There's a mic, or you guys can just talk loudly. Yes?
I just have a really practical question. For the groups, are they co-led with two folks, or is it one leader model?
Either or. So we would recommend co-lead because it does evoke, we do focus a lot on the past and it can bring up a lot of trauma. So we do recommend having two co-facilitators just to share that responsibility. And also, we also know that we connect with certain people differently. So having two facilitators also creates an opportunity that there will be a connection with somebody, right? But it doesn't necessarily have to be that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. It is. All of our parenting groups are curriculum based. So they have specific activities, and they are chronological activities because we're building to get to a certain point. Yeah. Yeah.
Are you office-based, and do you go out in the community to provide the groups?
So right now we're a small but mighty team here in New York. It's myself and one other person. We will be hiring someone else very soon. But we are office based in Midtown. And then we have, through our formalized partnerships, co-led groups, but with the hope that they will be running sustainable programs in the next year. So it's really providing clinical consultation within those. If that answers. All right, that's it.
All right, thank you guys. Enjoy
Thank
your
you.
morning.
Yeah.